What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. We've got a super special episode for you today where I sat down with Meikayla Moore, who is a pro footballer for Glasgow City FC and on the New Zealand Football Ferns. So this is an exciting episode because they are gearing up for the World Cup in just a couple months. But in this episode, we dove deep into her youth career, her pro career, all of the challenges that she's faced from her Achilles tear and how she recovered from that right before the 2019 World Cup. We talked a lot about the importance of finding a supportive community through the ups and the downs of life and just how important adversity is to life and how you can take any terrible moment or experience and turn it into something that can make you a lot better, stronger person and athlete. So if you're a parent, coach, athlete listening, I know you're going to love this episode. This is by far one of the favorite episodes and interviews that I've ever done on the show, and I know you're going to get so much value out of it. So I hope you enjoy the episode and get excited to cheer on the Football Ferns heading into the World Cup just in a couple months in July. So super excited for you to listen to the episode. If you enjoy it, let us know. Make sure you follow Meikayla and her journey after you're done watching the episode, and I hope you enjoy. What's up, Meikayla? Welcome to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. So excited to finally have you on. I know we planned it, last September to have you on, and then I ended up, being like, sorry, I'm taking a break. So you were going to be the last person back on, and with your schedule, it was hard to get you back on here, but I'm excited to finally have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's dive in first. I know a lot of people kind of already know who you are and a little bit about your background, but I'd love to kind of start with your youth playing days and kind of how you got to achieving your lifelong dream of, being a professional footballer and playing for the Ferns.
Yeah, I obviously am from NZ. I started playing there when I was probably age 4, I think. Played in a boys team up until the age of 12. And then I went to my first all-girls team, played in Christchurch till I finished high school, and then moved up north to Auckland because that's just where kind of the hub of football is. I was up there several years before I kind of outgrew that program and was kind of in the Ferns environment for a few years, and it was time for me to head overseas. And went on a trial for a few teams in Germany and ended up signing for one. And that's kind of where my pro journey began at a club called Cologne in the northwest of Germany.
What was it like? So you said you were 17 when you traveled overseas?
No, I was 17 when I first joined the Ferns, or was in
Okay.
in the Ferns environment. I moved when I just turned 21.
21.
So kind of at the later
Okay.
end of it, but that was
What
when I
was it
first went
like?
pro.
Yeah, what was it like moving overseas? I mean, had you ever been like overseas for an extended period of time?
Not for an extended period of time. So obviously I was fortunate to travel with the Ferns when we go overseas, and largely we play a lot of games in Europe and Asia. So I had traveled a lot with them, but I'd never left home for an extended period of time. And anybody that knows me knows I'm a very big homebody, very family orientated. So that adjustment in itself was pretty tough initially. I knew a Kiwi in Cologne, like she played there, Amber Hearn. So that kind of was massive for me because she also spoke German and kind of helped me integrate into the squad. But I lived alone in a flat, be that it was a German family who pretty much are my second family now.
Yeah,
That
that's awesome.
adjustment initially was massive. It took a lot for me personally.
What was kind of the most difficult thing for you, being away from your family and stuff?
Yeah, I think just the simple fact of being away from them, like you
Yeah.
just alluded to, we are lucky to have FaceTime now and things like that, but the time difference is also extremely difficult. My parents or family would be waking up and I'd be going to bed because there's like pretty much a 12-hour time difference most of the year. So that was pretty challenging, like having to live my days and try to figure out things for myself. I mean, I had done that in Auckland for years as well. I lived with other of the flatmates and not my family. But yeah, I think that big step moving across the globe was something you can never prepare for, but obviously like I'm really good at it now. Like I
Right.
hardly ever go home. So yeah, it was an adjustment, but one that I think I knew I had to make when I was younger.
Yeah.
Like I knew I had to go overseas. That was kind of the path that players in New
Right.
Zealand had to do. You know, most of the Ferns were overseas. We didn't have a professional team like we do now. So yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, that was kind of your lifelong like childhood dream was to play
hmm
professionally, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My
Yeah.
mum will attest that I had this like pyramid from a very young age with like playing for New Zealand and playing for
Yeah.
professionally. It was at the top. So yeah, I knew I always wanted to do it. It was just, I guess you have to tackle different obstacles as you pursue that kind of dream.
Right. So yeah, I mean, like talking to that, like what was it like? So as a kid, you played with boys until you were 12. I did as well, which
hmm
is kind of cool. But what was the like the work required in order for you to go, from that to playing overseas to being on the Ferns? Like, I guess just I'd like to hear you speak to what it takes, I guess, to play at that level and work for it your whole life, basically.
Yeah, I think for me as a kid, I know I was very involved with like several sports, so I was always very busy. I did swimming and football up until 14, and then I had to kind of choose one, and for me it was very easy. Swimming
Mm-hmm.
links of a pool got very grim at the end, so it wasn't a hard decision. But yeah, I also dabbled in like athletics, track. Like my childhood was very busy. I was very fortunate to be able to partake in many sports. But I guess when it probably started to get quite real for me was when I started being involved in the kind of NZ setups. So I think I was about 15 when we started having camps for age group. And I guess that was when I kind of started realizing, oh, like I could play for New Zealand, like this could be my first opportunity. And I actually had a couple of setbacks with that. Like I didn't get selected for a couple of camps. And when you're a kid, like that's quite disheartening. I think I took
Yeah.
it way, way too strongly. And when I look back on it, but when you're that young, like everything's so real and so intense. And I had a very good support system around me. I had a couple of coaches that I pay homage to a lot, and Tim Bush
Mm-hmm.
and Mike DeBono. They saw kind of a lot in me from a very young age, and we did extra sessions like in the morning. My mom um, is probably my rock. She drove me and did everything for me from a very young age. So yeah, I would do extra sessions in the morning after school, like wherever I could, up until I probably made that squad for the under 17s. And even then, like a large chunk of it was based in Auckland, so I would travel most weeks on a Friday evening up to Auckland after
Yeah.
school to partake in a training and then kind of a training match on the same day. And then I would come back down on the Sunday for school again on the Monday. So my
Yeah.
life was very different in my high school years. I had to say no to a lot of things with my friends. I had a big friends group, but I've always been quite the kind of individual one. I'm quite, yeah,
Yeah.
I like to keep to myself, but I did have a big group and they kind of got used to me saying, "Oh, I can't, like I've got football," or,
Right.
that's kind
Yeah.
of just the thing that you have to do.
Mm.
Um, and it helped that like I was out of the city, so it wasn't like I was training in Christchurch. But yeah, I
Right.
did that up until I moved after high school, and then yeah, I was involved in what was the development program up there at the time. Before this whole Phoenix program came around in recent years, and yeah, when I outgrew that, those were daily sessions. We'd sometimes have two. Like I alluded to earlier, I made the jump overseas and then was in a full-time professional environment, training with the German club. We trained, yeah, in the evenings there. So I would gym during the day and then make my way to
Yeah.
training and then yeah, full Bundesliga season would roll around. They're usually from like July till May, June. So I've been partaking in full European seasons for nearly 6 years now. So
Man, that's a lot.
yeah.
That's a lot of football
Yeah,
playing.
yeah, it is a lot of football.
So going back to, you not making, some of the trials and stuff like that,
Mhm.
in your younger days, how did that like affect your confidence and how are you able to, I guess maintain confidence if you were able to maintain it? Because I know like a lot of girls are going through, here in the States, it's like a lot of
Mhm.
tryouts are going on
Yeah.
right now,
Mhm.
around this time of year. So yeah, I'd love to just hear kind of what your confidence looked like after that, if it did
Mhm.
dip, and how you kind of recovered from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think I took it quite strongly, like not being selected, and it was really upsetting. Like at the time, I wanted to really make that World Cup, that Under 17 World Cup in Azerbaijan at 2012, I believe it was. And so to not make a camp, you kind of thought like, oh, that's it. Like I'm not going to make that World Cup. Um, and so, yeah, I really lent on my support systems, my family, the coaching staff that was available, what was available to me. And yeah, we made a plan. And like I said, I did extra trainings and kind of, I guess, looking back on it now, like I took control of what I could control. But I think maybe at that age, I didn't really know what that meant. I was just kind of like, I have to do more football. I have to do more
Right.
trainings. Like I need to, and mum kind of helped put all my ducks in a row essentially. But like nowadays, when I look back on it, I definitely kind of, yeah, my mum helped me control what I could control. And that essentially was me and what I was doing. And so I can control my fitness and I can control how much time I had on the ball. And so mum would be timing me at the park, doing my shuttles, and then yeah, the coaches would put on extra sessions for me, and that's what I did. Got back into the camps, and then was present at every one following that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely was. I definitely have a strong head on me. Again, my
Hmm.
mom will
For
attest to
sure.
that. I'm going to bring her up a lot in this
Yeah, no, that's great.
conversation, I think. But yeah, when I want something, I'll do everything I can to make sure I'm in. If I'm not selected, at least I was in the best kind of shape holistically that I could be. So
Right. Yeah, no, I mean
yeah,
that's what I was kind of going to ask was like, because a lot of girls, it's like there's a difference between the ones that really want it and will go
yeah,
train and their parents will come, but it's because they want to train
hmm,
versus where it's like the parent being like, hey,
yeah.
you need to train, like, let's go out and train. But for you, it sounds like you were the one that instigated and your mom was like, just did everything she could to support you in that. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah, and again, I was very fortunate to have her in my corner, and I think like knowing I'm from New Zealand, I know it's a little bit different than America, and I know the pools of players are a lot larger, and things like that are a lot more challenging. So yeah, I guess my message would be just to try focus on like what you can control, and at the end of the day, that's all you can really do.
Awesome.
Not looking outside your bubble, essentially. When you start comparing yourself to others on the field, like you're not going to get anywhere. So, especially at that age, it's just
Yeah.
really, yeah, focusing what you can control. And then, it is a team game. So then when you are in a group session, it's how are you integrating with all the other girls or boys on your team, like, or just players in general. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever, because I know comparison is like such a huge thing,
Mm-hmm.
especially like now with social media. And like for me, I didn't, when I was playing in my youth days, there wasn't social media. So it was
No,
like,
me neither.
so you could only
Mm-hmm.
compare yourself to like who was directly in front of you. But now
Yeah.
you can literally compare yourself to like millions of people.
Yeah.
Did you ever struggle like with comparison with your teammates or with your competitors at all, like growing up or
Yeah.
even like now?
I think absolutely. I think it's part of the parcel sometimes, especially with team sports. It's kind of
Yeah.
an inevitable. And when I start recognizing kind of that kind of pattern, I'm very aware of it now, so I can kind of check myself and be like, that's not going to serve you whatsoever. But I think like when I was younger, and like you've just alluded to, we didn't have access to, I didn't have a cell phone until I was God knows how age. My sister and I shared a brick. So we didn't
Yeah.
have access to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or all this, like some would say, nonsense these days. And I feel grateful for that
Oh, me
because
too. Yeah.
it scares me sometimes what's out there. So I guess that's why I also want to have this conversation with you today, is because I think what you're trying to do is awesome. And so if I can play my part in influencing someone through your platform, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, social media can be pretty scary these days. And I even find myself needing to take breaks from it, because it can be quite unhealthy,
It
and in the
can.
footballing world, quite nasty as well.
I'm glad you brought up well, I guess I kind of brought up the social media thing and you ran with it, but I'm glad that we're talking about it a little bit. And I do talk about it a lot because it is, like you
Yeah.
said, it can be like really dangerous and really toxic. So for you, you
hmm
said that you sometimes have to take, a step away. What are your like social media breaks look like? And like, how do you
hmm
recognize, oh, maybe I need to take a little bit of a break?
Yeah, I think for me, sometimes I still don't notice the patterns early enough. I think when I'm in a good headspace, I do, but when things are a little bit tough, I think sometimes it's very easy to just lie on my bed after a day of training and just be like scrolling. And when I'm in a good headspace, I can really kind of identify, oh, I'm mindlessly scrolling here. Like, what am I even? I'm not even paying attention most of the time to what I'm even looking at.
Right.
But obviously subconsciously you are. So for me, it's just, yeah, if I need to take a period of time off, I either put on like I don't even know what the feature is called off the top of my head, but you can screen
Yeah,
time.
the
I turn on
screen
the
time,
screen
yeah.
time function, yeah. So I make sure that it's not the first thing I look at in the morning. So it's turned off from like 8 p.m. until midday. Um,
Awesome.
Unless I need to go on there for work or something or some business thing. But most of the time I'm trying to stay off till midday, and that's usually till after I'm finished training anyway. So I find that's quite good for me. I'm not, faced with a lot of the stuff that might be on there in the morning when my brain's still waking up. I find that quite beneficial. And then also at the end of the night, I don't need to be like scrolling on TikTok or Instagram at 9 p.m. before I'm sleeping, because that's not beneficial either. But
Yeah.
I guess also from like if I'm having a tough time, yeah, on or off the field, like I just am like, social media is not it for me right now. And I guess that's where my inward focus comes in. It's like that external kind of presence is not going to help me in any way. So let's just shut that off and really, go inward and see
That's
what
awesome.
I need to be doing, and yeah, kind of navigate it that way. But I'm getting better with the social media side of it. I also know that I can have kind of positive impact on social media through sharing my life and my experiences. So I'm trying to find a happy medium. I don't always get
Yeah.
it right. I'm definitely back on social media now at present time, and so far it's okay. But yeah, it's for me, it's finding that kind of balance of being able to help others, and show the positivity, but also the realness. And
Yeah.
I'm always very conscious of being quite open and honest. And then, yeah, if it's not working for me, then I just have to go off it essentially.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. Like just it's so simple. And I think the biggest thing that especially teenagers could do is like not look at your phone right in the morning because that's
Yeah.
when you're like if you look at it right in the morning, like immediate stress throughout the
hmm
day. So
Yeah,
it's really cool to
absolutely.
hear that you don't check it, until after your training so that you're probably much more clear-headed for
Uh-huh.
your training sessions and you probably perform better physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And then like at night, like there's so many times I ask my girls like, what time do you go to bed? Okay, what are you doing before you go to bed? It's like, oh, I'm sitting on TikTok. Okay,
Yeah.
like that's huge red flag.
Yeah.
So I think just having boundaries around it
hmm
because our phones, like they're addictive. They're meant to be addictive.
Yeah.
Social media is
Yeah.
meant to be addictive. So it's like we kind of have to create these hard and fast rules
hmm
around when I use them, when I don't use them.
Yeah.
And that way, I think, like you said, when you are in not a great, headspace, you recognize that and you realize that, oh, social media or my phone isn't going to solve or fix how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
And instead, you go inward. So I just wanted
And
to
nine times
highlight
out of
that.
10, like social media is not going to
Oh,
fix you,
no,
So like
never.
it's kind of, yeah. I think, yeah, for me, it's sometimes you have to make those boundaries quite like hard and be like, I
Yeah.
just have to go off it completely, because I'm religiously going on it right now. And then I kind of integrate it back into my life and make sure that I'm not abusing it essentially for my mental health. So
Yeah.
it's about finding what works for you, and I'm still trying to navigate that
Yeah,
myself.
me too. It takes
Yeah,
it
I
takes a
think we
lot of
all are.
experiments. I mean, I go through phases too where I'm like, oh, I'm on it way too much, and then times
Yeah.
where I can really like, be off of it without much struggle. But I think it's important to realize that like I think a lot of people struggle with it, and it's
Hmm.
okay. But just having, like you said, having the awareness and kind of like going
Yeah.
inward so that you can use it in a more healthy way, as
Hmm.
opposed to using it just to numb whatever's going on in your life.
Yeah. I think what I've also found, like as a female footballer, a lot of the time, like we use it as an additional form of business, and so that's where I've also struggled with it as well, is because I have obligations to certain
Yeah.
brands that I might be working with at the time, or I need to make, an appearance or something like that. And that's challenging because I've often gone to an appearance and yeah, they're like, oh, we'll tag you in this and you can reshare on your story. And I'd be like, oh, I'm not on social media right now. Like, really sorry. But most of the time they like understand, but it's,
Mm,
if I've set myself like a strict rule of I'm not going to go on it for 2 weeks or a month, if that's what I'm doing, like I try not to
awesome.
break that either, because then
That's
even
great.
though I might be in situations where I might be forced to, but so far I haven't struck any problems with it. So that's good. But I have
Yeah.
found like that in itself is also another kind of tricky obstacle to navigate, because yeah, a lot of female footballers get revenue or kind of exposure through social media, so that can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it can definitely be a challenge if for me it's a challenge because if I didn't have my business, I probably wouldn't be on social media, but it's like I
Mm,
want to share, I want to put some good out into the world. But yeah, again, it's just like finding that balance
mm-hmm,
and it takes a lot of awareness and perspective to do that. So,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah. So you talked about with social media, like you do use it as a platform to, share positive things and, your experience and just like empowerment, especially in like the LGBTQ community. So for you, it's like, I feel like you are a great example of someone who is true to who you are. You don't try to be anybody else. And I love that about you, which is I think
Thank
what kind
you.
of drew me to you. So I guess what advice do you have for girls who are kind of navigating the like who am I and how do I like be my true self without like like because belonging is such a huge thing. So I just love to hear kind of like I guess your experience with just being true to who you are, and then any advice for girls that are kind of navigating that as well.
Yeah, I think firstly, thank you so much. Those really kind words, but I think it's it hasn't been an easy journey. Not yeah whatsoever. I again have had very supportive people in my corner who have been with me every step of the way, and yeah, I guess I came out quite young to my family. It's probably yeah, it's 10 years ago now. So that's kind of, I guess, where my journey began. And yeah, I thank football a lot when I'm asked this question, because it's been a massive kind of platform for me to express myself and be true to who I am. I think it's not uncommon knowledge that it's a very safe space
Yeah.
for members of the LGBTQ plus community, to be expressive, to be true to who they are. And I know it's still got a long way to go, both on the female side and even more so significantly on the male side, and then across the whole spectrum in general. So yeah, it's been a tough journey, but I think for me, it's yeah, I am now in a place where I'm 100% kind of set in who I am and how I identify, and that's why I am so open on my
Mm-hmm.
platforms and in interviews that I have, because I'm a firm believer if I can help at least one individual by sharing my story and being true to myself, then maybe that might, help them be true to themselves. And I know everybody's journey is different, but I think yeah, it's just kind of trying to help foster an environment for those, in my circle and in your circle and in the footballing community as a whole to just be able to be true to who they are. And yeah, I know football has done a lot for me in that
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Just, yeah, and the whole athletics in general, it was
Yeah.
definitely a safe space for me. Yeah, same for me. I came out when I was, I think, in college.
Okay.
And I had, and I was also in like a very religious town. The
Hmm.
school that I was, most of the girls were really religious, but I had a great experience with my teammates and my coaches. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah, for me too, it was like soccer or football, we'll say.
You can
And,
say soccer, it's fine.
I want to say football as much as I can because it should be football.
uh,
It was a safe space for me too. And yeah, I think it's awesome. Like for people like you, professional footballers and just professional athletes in general who do use their platform to
yeah.
use your voice and to it's kind of like you're giving other girls like a permission slip to like, hey, you can fully be yourself and you'll still be
Hmm.
loved, like no
Hmm.
matter what. I think that's so incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's why, I think sport, I guess we could just broadly speaking, but obviously I've been present in the footballing community. Like, I don't know how it would have gone if I didn't have sport. I think I'm fully aware that everybody, again, isn't as fortunate as I am to have a supportive network around them in these instances. And yeah, I think my advice to them is just try to find a safe network of people. And, you know, it's not always blood. It's sometimes, the people that you've met along the way. And it's just really kind of, I guess, leaning on them and using them. And then, yeah, using the communities you're in. I think those sometimes are where, people sense or get the most kind of support from. For me, it's been football and my
Yeah.
family. The girls that I've met, the teams that I've played on, I've always felt welcomed. And yeah, I think it's largely communities that you're a part of,
Yeah.
and I guess trying to find, other communities outside of sport if you're not into sport that, can support you and foster an environment for you to be true to who you are.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest things is, especially for a teenager, whether you're gay or not, like having a,
Yeah.
like having a community, like you said, maybe it's not always blood, like it very
Hmm.
well may likely be blood, but
Hmm.
maybe it's your teammates, maybe it's some other group at school, maybe it's some
Yeah.
teachers, a counselor, like, stuff like that. But I think finding a community of people that like love you just for you and love you at your core, I
Yeah.
think is like such a key thing, especially for, a teenage girl with all
Hmm.
these crazy external influences that they have, going in their ears today.
Yeah, absolutely. And like speaking of external resources, I think that's when social media is pretty cool these days. Like
Yeah.
it's so much easier to maybe connect with other communities or groups online, or you don't have to be in your state, for example, where you're from, or like from New Zealand for me. Like you can find people wherever you are, and it's so easy, like we've seen through the tough periods of COVID, like for people to interact and kind of still stay connected.
Hmm.
So I think that's a very positive aspect of social media, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah. I
think
mean, like
people can
for,
use that
yeah.
more.
Absolutely. Like for anyone
Hmm.
listening, like they could send me a DM and I'm gonna respond. Like
Yeah,
no,
same here.
like any girl DMs me, if it's some weird creepy dude, I'm not gonna respond. But
Yeah, delete.
if it's like a delete, no.
Yeah,
But if it's like a girl like sends me a DM, like I'm gonna respond every
yeah,
single
me
time. And
too.
so having just knowing that you have people like that, or that you could have people like that,
Hmm.
in your circle is a very, very, strong benefit of social media. So I'm glad you brought
Absolutely.
that up too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit, and let's go a little bit more to the sports side. So
Hmm.
you tore your Achilles in
I did.
2019.
2019, yeah.
Oh, I got it right. Yes. So that's a big time injury. So
Yeah.
what were you doing during that time?
Hmm.
Like what teams and stuff like that? And then what was it, just like the feelings and the emotions? Because it was right before the World Cup, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
talk about that a
obviously,
little bit.
it was a few years ago now. But I was in my second year of playing in Germany. I was at MSV Duisburg, so still in the northwest of Germany, still playing in the Bundesliga. Had a really good season with them. And then we traveled, well, we met up for the Ferns, so it was a couple of months out from the World Cup. And we had assembled in France, and we were 3 days out from our first game against the Netherlands. And we had warmed up, and then we'd done like a passing drill, and everything was fine, like nothing that I would think was wrong. And then we had to like reprime for some sprints. And I went to do like a high skip, and we had to
Yeah.
do like three high skips and then a burst of pace. And on like the third high skip, I went up, and I just like, yeah, heard a bang. I thought the girl behind me, had kicked me. But no, I had ruptured my left Achilles.
Jeez.
Pretty easy diagnosis, like pitch side. A lot, I think, more clearer than an ACL. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
you just flip the person on their stomach essentially, and then you kind of squeeze their calf. If the calf like pulls the foot back up, then your Achilles is fine, but my foot stayed completely still, so complete rupture.
Yeah.
And yeah, first major injury, so kind of was hit with a lot of emotion instantly. Eve of my second senior World Cup, was definitely in a much better position than the first. I was a baby in Canada, so I was kind of along for the
Right.
ride and the learning experiences, but I think I was definitely in the like mixed for selection for the for game time. I'd had, like I said, a really good season, so I was feeling good, feeling fit. And yeah, I remember just like crying and not really knowing what was going on, because I think for female athletes, you always just think ACL, like I think
Yeah.
I've had in the back of my head that the potential for that to happen is quite high, and it's just the nature of the game and our bodies, and it's all too frequent. So yeah, you just always think that, but never Achilles, and I didn't really know what that entailed. I didn't know how long. And I just remember like the doctor taking me inside and asking if I could borrow her phone so I could ring my mum, because they were supposed to fly out that day to France, to meet up for the games. And I rang her and I was like, "Don't come. Like, I ruptured my Achilles. I don't know what that means, but it's not good. Like, my World Cup's done." And she was like, "No, well, we're gonna be there. We'll see you at the hospital, whatever,
Hmm.
like just take care of you, focus on you." And yeah, like long story short, I look back on it gratefully. I was in very good hands. Like the World Cup, there's FIFA accredited surgeons. Like
Mm,
I had
right.
operation within 3 days. So I had the operation the day of our first game. Um, I remember like waking up in the operation room, and I think 20 minutes later, like my family were there. So it all happened quite seamlessly, and they put the game on, but I don't remember half of
Yeah,
it.
you're like
Like I
knocked
was
out.
on some kind of tough medication, but yeah, it couldn't have gone any better for me in regards to the treatment that I got and the care that I got and how quickly everything happened. I still to this day have the surgeon's contacts. He sometimes randomly messages me before a tournament, like asking how I'm going. And yeah, he
Awesome.
was great. Like, I don't think he spoke much English. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I was in very good hands. Very fortunate. It happened very quickly. And then I guess the most grueling part of it was when the World Cup kind of came to an end. I stayed for the games. That was pretty
Yeah.
tough. Um, I wanted to stay in the environment, and the girls wanted me to stay, and the coach wanted me to be a part of it all. But it was pretty tough, like to stand in the sands. And yeah, I had the cast on, and I was still in a lot of pain, and it was just a very kind of weird time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I had maybe a week with my family before we flew back to New Zealand. And again, they had already organized for me to start my rehab with High Performance Sport, which is like, yeah, the governing sport body in New Zealand. Again, very high professional care. I was in the best hands. I was able to stay at home. And yeah, I got treated by my physio, Tamsin. She was my light and savior through it all. And yeah, but long story short, again, very grueling rehab. I
Yeah,
essentially
for
had to
sure.
learn to walk again. It was very
Yeah.
odd. I was in a cast for 6 weeks, so you can imagine the size of like my calf when I took that
Yeah,
off.
it's
It was
probably
like the size
tiny.
of my wrist. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, and then you just have to like regain length in your Achilles again. So they put you in a cast, like your
Hmm.
foot's pointed down, so the tension's off. So I had to
Okay.
like gradually bring that back, and that pain was
Interesting.
incremental and excruciating. Yeah, one of the most
Yeah.
grueling rehabilitations I've heard of. I would never want to go through any of them, but it was extremely tough. I think
Yeah.
any big injury always is, but you learn from it, you grow through it, and I look back on it yeah, good good memories because I came out better because of it. That's what
Yeah.
you put it. I think most injuries you do. You learn
Absolutely.
about yourself. I think for me, I was faced with the brick wall of what am I outside of football. It was kind of the first time I'd had an extended period off the field, and I completely had an identity crisis. I
Absolutely.
had to work with mental coaches and psychologists in New Zealand because I just did not know who I was outside of football, and I wouldn't have been propelled into that kind of space had I not had that injury because I'd been football, football,
Yeah.
football my whole life. And yeah, so that kind of ability for me to grow, yeah, in that space, I thank the injury for that because I wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I was literally going to ask you, like, because I believe that every, obstacle
Hmm.
in life is just a way for you to grow. There's always something good that can
Yeah.
come out of it. And you just answered that question. Like, it allowed you to take a look at who is Meikayla
Hmm.
outside of football.
Yeah.
Because I think, I had that crisis too during my injuries, but I was 12, so it was
Hmm.
completely different.
Oh,
And then,
that's
like when you're done playing. So I think that a lot of high level athletes, if not every high
hmm.
level athlete, and even like college athlete, high school athletes go through this kind of identity crisis,
Yeah.
whether it's retirement or injury. So that was cool that you were able to, have that space for you to work with,
Hmm.
psychologists and stuff to be able to kind of figure that out, and probably became a better athlete and just a more well-rounded person in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I definitely came out the other side a better human being, like
Yeah.
ultimately. Don't get me wrong, it was like still grueling, and the
Yeah.
girls that have gone through, or just any people in general, like injuries twice, three times to that magnitude, I am like, because it's a real test of character, it's a real test of
Absolutely.
mental strength, and yeah, you can say like it's part of sport, which it is, but it still doesn't make it fun. So, but yeah,
No.
like I was very fortunate to undertake all of that back home and be with my family and
Yeah.
yeah, be able to have that love and support by me because I definitely need that.
For sure. I mean, like,
Hmm.
yeah, you've gone through, like, we'll talk about one more not so fun thing, and then we'll
Yeah.
we'll get into the fun of the future. But like, so
Hmm.
you had that, and then in 2020, was it last year,
Hmm.
2022?
Hmm.
Like, the She Believes Cup, versus USA, you had the own goal game.
Yeah.
So I know this is not fun to talk about,
Hmm.
but I would love to just hear a little bit about how you recovered from that game. And that was probably, I mean, I would guess probably the worst you've ever felt in a game, I'm
Hmm.
guessing.
Hmm.
So I'd love to just hear, because I think a lot of girls can benefit from, hearing going from like the worst, moment in your sports to how to recover from that, at that level. So go ahead and
Hmm.
just kind of talk about, what that was like, and how you recovered after that game, and lessons you learned along the way.
Yeah, so that was probably one of the most, yeah, toughest moments of my career today. That takes the cake over the Achilles, if I'm being honest. Um, yeah, I will be completely transparent. It was a nightmare. Um, it still to this day is impactful on me. It's a constant challenge, especially when things aren't maybe going my way football wise. But yeah, I think when I look back on it, it was very difficult to navigate because it wasn't like a football injury that you can kind of you've seen other people go through it and you know that there's light at the end of the tunnel and yeah, you're not alone. But
Yeah.
that, to my knowledge, has not happened before, maybe years ago in a yeah men's game. But to be
Yeah.
known for that is still upsetting. It was a day that kind of many people have told me is a series of unfortunate events. Um, I don't really know how else to kind of put it. Yeah, it happened, and it was very, very tough to come out the other side. Fortunately, at the time, I had already had a therapist that I was working with on a
Hmm.
weekly basis for other external kind of factors that I was navigating.
Hmm.
And so he was instantly on
That's
my
awesome.
phone.
Yeah. Hmm.
I remember like going back to the changing room and being very numb at halftime.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't want to go back out on the field, but I knew that I kind of had to. But at the time, Abby Ursig was right there. She obviously wasn't partaking in that game either due to injury, but yeah, she kind of told me that like it's not gonna define me and that the best thing I can do right now is to put on a brave face and
Yeah.
yeah, go out there and continue to support the girls.
Hmm.
So that's what I did with like really red puffy face, kind of head
Yeah.
down
Hmm.
thing. I guess in the hours that followed, I immediately, once I got a hold of my phone, deleted every single app. I
Oh,
was
yeah. That's
not gonna
good.
get on there at all.
Yeah.
Had I not been in therapy prior to that, I might have gone on, but I was already dealing with personal issues, so
Yeah.
I guess I had a little bit of nous about me to not jump on. Um, I rang my mom. That conversation was just a lot of her telling me how much she loves me and me crying
Hmm.
my eyes out. And then, yeah, I was in regular talks with my therapist throughout the rest of that campaign or that tour for us.
Yeah.
It was just about trying to navigate it, which both of us didn't really know how to do. We just had to
Hmm.
take it day by day, essentially, because, yeah, that was unforeign territory. And
Right.
yeah, it still is something that I have to work on. I think the biggest thing that I was able to transfer from my injury to that moment was that football is something I do, it's not who I am. Had I not had the Achilles injury, I don't know if I would have been able to tackle that huge mountain that I'd just been put in front of me. But
Right.
I think that is a constant reminder that I have to tell myself, even to this day, that football is something I do. It's not who I am, and that game um, I could let define me or not. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's still something I work on. I think the support I had from the NZ coach was phenomenal. I set foot on the field again in that tournament for like 3 minutes against Czech Republic. She didn't have to do that. I think we ended up drawing that game, but she trusted me enough to put me back on the field. And
Yeah.
those 3 minutes of football were immensely powerful to me for a multitude of
Yeah.
reasons. Um, the obvious that she trusted me enough to help keep a clean sheet for the
Yeah.
team in that tournament. And yeah, I guess it's just a daily thing that I have to kind of navigate. Coming back on social media after months, there was a lot of stuff that I had to
Mm-hmm.
navigate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day, I get stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
think for the rest of my career, I probably will. It's posted everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that constant reminder of football is
Yeah.
something I do, it's not who I am. And yeah, I want to say I'm fine with it, but I still am not. Like, stuff
Yeah.
happens in training, and it's like the first thing that pops in my head. Stuff happens in the game, I make a mistake, it's the first thing that pops into my head. It's just going to be a process for me of continuing to use the tools that I've garnered from the therapist and putting them into action when stuff happens. And I'm definitely at a much better place than I was. Again, when I'm having a bit of a tough time, it's more frequent if like I make a bad pass or like
Right.
I've still, stuff happens in trainings all the time. So it's just navigating it as I cross it. But it was definitely a period of my life that I look back on and unlike
Yeah.
the injury, don't wish happened, but
Right. No, I
it's
mean,
happened and yeah.
yeah, I appreciate you talking about it. I know it's not something that you talk about with a lot of people, so I
No.
appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing
Hmm.
that. And just so you know, honestly, I did not like I don't know how I did not know that about you until I did my research before this
Okay.
podcast.
Okay.
Like I really didn't know that. Like when I
Yeah.
followed you and when I reached out to you, I honestly didn't know that.
Hmm.
And I saw that and I was like, wait, is that true? So I don't think it defines you.
Yeah.
And you know that it doesn't define you.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just appreciate you sharing that. Because it's like it's
It's true.
been a
Like
little.
it's life, like it
Yeah,
happens.
it's
And
life.
I think, like I said to you before, especially when I'm in interviews now, sorry, especially with the hype of like the World Cup at home, like when we've been on home soil, it's the first thing that people ask me or want to ask
Mm,
me. And I'm
okay.
like to our media officer now, like I won't talk about it.
Right.
I have talked about it. It's been and gone. I went back to LA and we had a great tour there and I scored a penalty goal and I felt like I left LA with demons like released. And yeah, even though it still impacts me, I use that as fuel to be like, okay, well, you still need to work on this because it flares up sometimes, but you have the tools to do that. Whereas,
Yeah.
yeah, when people are asking me to talk about it now, I'm like, no, like that happened. I've addressed it.
Yeah.
I am who I am. Football is something I do. But feel free to ask me anything else, but I will not be touching that. But obviously, with you, I was
Cool.
quite happily
Yeah.
to do so. I think this is a safe space. And again, if it
Hmm.
helps, anybody who
Yeah.
listens to it or watches it, then I've done something good. So
No, yeah, I think
my
it will. And
privilege.
like for me, it's like thinking, okay, what in my life has happened like that? And for me, it's kind of like that recurring thing that will pop up is like anxiety for
Mhm.
me. It's
Mhm.
like I'll have really, really good periods of it, and then I'll
Mhm.
have one, bad experience and it'll flare up. And then the next month or two, it's like just kind of there. Like even for me this last year, coming back from Hawaii, like I got really anxious. And then like
Mhm.
that whole month after, it was like it was really tough for me. So I think that
Okay.
there's always stuff in people's lives where it's anxiety or depression or just
Absolutely.
a couple of bad moments like you had
Yeah.
where it's kind of just that thing that bubbles up in
Mhm.
life. And it's important, like you said, that you have a therapist, you have a strong community for people
Mhm.
that love you. And the most important thing I think is that that football is what you do, not who you are, and
Yeah.
you are strong in who you are, and you know who you are, and you're not going to change who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just like to carry on with what you're saying, like I think a lot of people try to get to this like steady plane of like good. I'm going to say the word goodness, even though that probably doesn't work right now, but like that's not
Yeah.
how life works whatsoever.
No.
And I think the places you learn most about yourself is when it's like in the pits and you really have to like be faced in the mirror and be like, okay, what am I going to do about this? and I appreciate that sometimes people get into places where they need to, have that external help and love. And I just hope that they have those in place. And if not, someone is able to see that and help them. And I think that's why I wanted to come and speak with you today, is because I know I have a platform to help, and maybe people don't know, or, maybe I come across their feed or something. I don't know. Sometimes
Right.
it's like that one in a lifetime kind of moments that you see something, you're like, oh, that's like gonna help me. Or I see some, even if I'm seeing stuff in the street, it's little things like that. And yeah, for me, it's just that constant reminder of life is like a roller coaster. It's full of ups and downs, as cliche as it is, but it's the truth.
Hmm.
And we just have to navigate it as best we can with the love and people around us. And it's
Yeah, I
about
mean,
leaning on them too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're all guilty of thinking, oh, when this happens, like
Yeah,
it'll
I'm
just
gonna
be
stay
smooth
there.
sailing.
It's
Yeah,
never
like
smooth sailing. I will put my hand up and say I've never had smooth sailing for a long period of time.
yeah, it's like maybe a couple months. It's like you're in a groove, everything is
Mm,
good, but it's like,
hmm.
but there's and how boring would life be? And we wouldn't really grow very much if we didn't
No,
have these dips and these pits, like you said, because those are the things that
yeah,
help you to grow and get better and learn. So
absolutely.
it's like we have to obviously they suck, but we have to kind of welcome those and
Hmm.
and find the silver lining in all of those down moments, because you're gonna have plenty of them.
Absolutely.
So might as well make the best of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. So let's move on. I know we're getting close on time here, but the World Cup is coming up in
Hmm.
just a couple months, and the coolest thing is that it's on your home soil.
Hmm.
I know it's New Zealand and Australia, but like, how excited are you for the World Cup, and specifically, it being in your home country?
Yeah, every time I'm asked this question, it's kind of hard to put into words. I think, again, like as a kid, I always wanted to play for New Zealand and to play at a pinnacle event, but to have it on home soil, um, I, it's kind of what dreams are made of, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I could have never wished for anything better. And I guess for me too, it's like third time lucky, obviously with the injury and being really young the first time. So I'm very much looking forward to it. When we talk about things that like I can control, it's at the start of this conversation, I'm focusing daily on what I can do to make sure that I'm in the best place, physically, mentally, emotionally for that games. Sometimes it's kind of hard to comprehend the enormity of it all. Especially like even as a footballer, so I have no idea what New Zealanders are thinking. I don't think they know the extent or the scale
Yeah.
of this tournament.
Right.
If the 2019 World Cup and the Euros are anything to go by, in the way the women's footballing community is growing and expanding at such a rapid rate, like this World Cup is going to be phenomenal. And I'm so excited to have people like come to my part of the world, Australia too, even though they're our biggest rivals. But I know that both countries will put on a World Cup to remember. And I know it's really far for most people, but trust me, it will be
Yeah.
absolutely worth it if you do make the journey.
And I've heard absolutely like amazing things about New Zealand and just how
Hmm.
gorgeous it is. Like, I'm a
Yeah,
huge outdoors person, so I'm like,
yeah,
I would love to just go there and go to some games and then like
yeah.
go explore. Like, that'd be so cool.
No, absolutely. We're known for that. So the
Yeah.
outdoorsy stuff is a big bonus of that country for sure. Australia too, except we just don't have the creepy
Yeah.
crawlies, so
The
I'm a little
creep.
bit biased.
What's the creep? Just bugs in general,
Yeah,
or just
bugs
creepy
like
crawly?
spiders,
Okay.
snakes,
You don't have
crocodiles.
those,
No, we don't have snakes.
really,
We have spiders, but like not to the extent that Australia have. Nothing that's
until
gonna like
Australia
not no
brings them over.
yeah, no, well, our biosecurity is very intense, so it's a little bit tricky for that to happen. But yeah, ours is much safer. We don't have those
Oh,
little, yeah.
good to know.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I mean, if I was going, I would go to New Zealand, because I'd rather go to New Zealand than
Yeah.
Australia,
I
especially
mean,
if there's
don't
no
get me
creepy
wrong,
crawlies.
like, I don't want to get hate from the Australians, but Australia is also a beautiful place, but I have to like reside with my home. So
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's all love, but we just love our home
Yeah.
soil a little bit more,
Oh,
right?
of course we do. I think like the cultural aspect as well, like obviously like the US are playing New Zealand, so I know a lot of Americans will be making the trip over. So I'm excited to see kind of that interaction from fans, and yeah, I know we're going to put on a display that's going to wow everybody. So I'm very, very
Yeah.
excited about the whole campaign.
Yeah. So when do you guys, I know you're in the UK right
Hmm.
now. So when does like, I guess, training camp start over there? Like I know you guys are already doing training camps and stuff, but when do you guys actually go over there and what does that preparation look like?
Yeah, so for me, I'm here until end of May. So my last game's hopefully the 28th of May. Then we've been advised like to take 10 or so days off. Just we'll keep training like in our own environments, but just externally removed from a footballing environment because I've been going since, July. So any kind of players that are in the UK or Europe that are finishing like start of June, end of May will take some time off, um, off, still running. But yeah, those that are not in season currently, I think we're starting training like May, June.
Awesome.
And then I'll just meet up with them probably mid-June or late teens of June. And then, yeah, it'll be all go from there, really.
Yeah, and then first match is July 20th against
20th,
Norway.
yeah, correct. In Auckland at Eden Park. So,
Awesome.
yeah, big
I have
match.
Norwegian roots. I'm like
Oh, okay.
mostly Norwegian, but I
Cool.
am not going for Norway. I'm absolutely going for the Ferns.
Oh, I appreciate that.
How can I not? Like
I
I just
know,
had
right?
this
After this
amazing
conversation.
convo with you. It's like you guys all the way. Like if you guys play the US,
Mm,
like it's going to be a toss up. Like I might honestly, sorry US, but I might go for you guys cuz I like personally like I don't have any connections with any of the
no.
players on the US. So, but I
Well,
do with you and
we'll
so
gladly take another supporter.
yeah, so to see you kick some ass would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Cool. So, any I guess what's the one thing, last question here.
Mm.
What's the one thing that you are most looking forward to for the World Cup? Just one single thing.
Oh, that's tough.
That's why I asked it.
I think like I'm I've been very fortunate to always have members of my family in the stands, but to put on the Ferns shirt in New Zealand in front of my family and the rest of Aotearoa, I think will be one of the moments that will like I'll carry with me for a lifetime. Like I you can't write that. As a young,
No.
Kiwi girl growing up, I would have never in my years imagined that that could be a possibility at a senior World Cup with the height of football at the moment. Like that, I'll die very happy.
I'm just like trying to put myself in your shoes, like
Yeah.
with the lineups and just like I'm like getting chills right now just thinking
Hmm.
about the enormity and the excitement of that
No,
moment.
honestly, like I'm prepping mentally for that as we speak with external, psychologists and performance psychologists as well because the enormity of that game. Like I haven't
Yeah.
really been exposed to that before because we rarely play at home. I have played obviously in big matches, fortunately, especially, like in America and Europe, they usually get quite big crowds. So yeah, I'm hoping that the Kiwis turn out in their masses. I know they will, but the enormity of that opening match, kickstarting a World Cup against Norway,
Because it's the first
pressure,
match, right?
yeah, opening match, yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's one in Australia, like maybe a little bit later on, but yeah, the opening ceremony will be in New Zealand. Yeah, just everything around that. I can't really put into words right now, so it's like
You can't.
I need to
There
put
are no
in a
words.
pressure cooker and like sort it out and be able to figure out how I'm going to react because yeah. that's a once in a lifetime kind of experience for
Absolutely.
sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's probably not going to be back in New Zealand while you're still
No,
playing.
I don't think so.
I highly, highly doubt it.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one more question
Of
that you
course
kind
you
of
can.
alluded to? So, how you talked about like you're starting to mentally prepare, like in general,
Hmm.
obviously that's like what I do. So I want to hear like from a professional footballer, how important is the mental preparation for you?
Yeah, it's immense. I mean, obviously we've touched on a lot of things that I've been through, and through that I've had to, you know, garner a big tool belt in regards to my mental space and how I operate both on and off the field. And for me now, it's also, okay, how can I use those tools of, management, kind of zoning in. I guess I use a lot of meditation, a lot of, I'm going to experience more with visual, like kind of cues of the game and things like that. But for me, it's being 10 foot tall, but being calm at the same time. That's kind of what I'm aiming for.
I love it.
So
Yeah,
that's a little
that's awesome.
secret, but
There you
yeah.
go, secret.
Uh-huh.
I
Hmm.
love that. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you really for coming on. Like I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while now, and
Hmm.
it totally exceeded my expectations. So I appreciate you coming on, sharing your experience, the good and the not so good, because I think
Hmm.
that it's going to help a lot of girls out there, not even girls, but some of the parents listening
Yeah.
as well. So thank you for coming on, and if you would just share kind of where people can follow your journey in the World Cup and connect with you if they want to connect with you.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute privilege. But yeah, I'm sure you'll like when you share this, you'll just tag my handle. But that's like the best. I'm very active on Instagram, and I'm not sure if I'll be active on Twitter throughout the campaign because that for me is one of the apps that I struggle with the most. But yeah, definitely
Yeah,
on
get off
Instagram.
Twitter.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cesspit if I'm being honest, but yeah, definitely Instagram. And if you want to follow along our team, I can send Shay the NZ Football Ferns, or you probably can find it easy enough. But those will
Yeah,
probably be the two avenues to follow
awesome.
along. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you again for coming on. We'll link it all up and make sure if you're listening to go follow Meikayla and Ferns, and let's give them some good energy heading into the World Cup. So
Much
thanks again,
appreciated.
Meikayla,
No
and we'll
worries.
catch you guys on next week's episode.
Thank you.